presentation is on assessment in mathematics and the importance and the vitalness of assessment on shaping a child's learning experience. Callingham 2010 suggested that assessment should be an informal experience and it should be conducted within the classroom through normal activity. In saying this, I'm focusing today on two strategies of assessment: rubric and observation. So the relevance of choosing both of these strategies is that they're very different in how they're executed in the classroom, but it's these differences that make them really important and that make them vital to the assessment process. So rubric, as suggested by Stenmark and Bush 2001, they suggested that scoring is comparing students' work to a rubric of what we expect of them, whereas grading is accumulating scores for the purpose of summarising and simply then communicating this to others. So rubric can encompass Vygotsky's scaffolding theory, where understanding what students know and what we need to build on them, on what we need to build on their prior knowledge in order to get them to what we expect them to know. For example, if you were to give a class an activity of sorting the lowest value to the highest value in money, you're able to break it up into 3 columns. So you could have a criteria on children who aren't understanding, the criteria on children who are understanding slightly, and the children who are really excelling and they can successfully complete the task. For example, a child in the category of not understanding may not be able to differentiate the 20-cent coin from the $1 coin. So from here, we're able to understand that this is their basis and this is exactly where they're at. So what we can do to build on them to get them to that understanding category and that understanding column. The limitation for this is that it can be seen that we're comparing students between each other, but the focus is on the individual, and you need to make that assessment focus really individually based, and that our outcome is based on them and we really want them to get to that, what we expect them to know and what we can do to get them to that understanding category. So observation is the other strategy, and observation is based on planning. So it's really important to plan exactly what you want to know from your children and what you want to observe from them and what you want to see exactly where they're at. For example, if you were to get all your students to, or if you were to place all of your students in groups and they were to sort and organise different blocks of triangles, squares and circles, and they had to place the circles in a group, triangles in a group and the blocks in the group. From this you could see that, for example, 3 students may have really stood out in a group to understand, okay, exactly where the triangles and the squares and the circles go, but maybe some 2 or so of the students are really struggling with understanding that why don't the triangles go with the squares? So there, as a teacher, you're able to understand that, okay, these students are really struggling in this communication environment. But also this can be seen as a limitation because some of those students may know exactly what's going on, but may not be able to communicate that because they can be considered more independent and individual learners. So that's why it's important to have a really broad range of assessment strategies to be able to really benefit and to get the best out of all of your students. In saying this, after doing all these assessments, it's important to keep a record of how each of your students are going individually. So their individual weaknesses, their individual strengths, and from this you can sort of scaffold how you're going to move them through their learning process and what you can do next to get them to what they're expected to know and what you want to bring out in them. So a checklist is a really great strategy to use, as it allows you to go through all of your students and to see that, for example, Chris is going really well in patterns and algebra and he understands all of these points, but is really struggling at maybe 2 or so of them. So from there you can scaffold your next class depending on how many students are at that level and what we can do to make that transition and to build upon their learning experience. So really the take-home message for today is that all children are very individual in their learning experiences. So therefore it's important to have a really broad range of assessment strategies to be able to understand and to be able to really have the best understanding of exactly where all of your children are at.